maybe 30 minutes at the most after arriving on scene. I wouldn't say it was past 30 minutes at all.
Were you among the first several officers to arrive?
Yes, sir.
After you had that conversation with her, did she remain in her apartment?
Yes.
And did you later go back and talk with her again?
Yes.
Did she tell you whether or not she remembered anything that she hadn't told you before?
She did, sir.
And did that concern seeing a person in apartment 1?
Yes, sir.
Let's switch dates then to November 18th of 2017, pardon me, 2016. Did you go back to the area of 215 North Brunswick?
I did.
What was your purpose in doing that?
I was going to relieve an officer that was still standing off the scene, and that was actually why I was headed down there.
Why would an officer be standing on the scene at that point?
Just keeping it secure. The investigation was ongoing, so there's like a perimeter around the apartment to make sure no one in or out, and it's like 24 hours. Somebody's watching it.
When you arrived to relieve that officer, did someone get your attention?
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
There was a couple of gentlemen in a parking lot as I pulled up adjacent to where the parking lot was for where the incident occurred. And it was a male in his 30s and another older male, in which he had flagged me down in reference to some video cameras on his friend's apartment that could help with the investigation, because it had made the news and everybody was kind of worried.
So did you go to one of the apartment buildings?
I did, yeah.
Do you recall which one that was, what the address was?
It's apartment number D, but I'd have to, the exact address, I'd have to reflect here on my notes.
What I'm showing you is your report from that incident, was it not? Or is it not?
There we go. Yes, it is.
Okay. Where did you go?
It was actually 229 North Brunswick, apartment number D. David. So.
And that's actually 2 buildings down
Yes.
north from 250.
Yes.
While you were at 229, you talked to the resident there,
Yes.
and did he show you some videos?
Yes, he had actually showed me in the parking lot what he was talking about on his cell phone. I guess he could view all of his surveillance stuff that he had saved. And so he was showing me and then took me upstairs in the apartment to show me more.
At some point, did you ask him to help with the investigation by going down to the police station?
I did.
And did he give you anything before you went down?
Yes.
What did he give?
He gave me a cell phone, and he wanted to make sure I had a charger to keep it charged in case the battery got low, so the investigators could look at it or plug it in to keep it charged.
And did he give you a passcode for that?
I believe he did. The passcode and all the information to view them. He actually, I recall in mind, it was, with technology, it was weird because, you have to go through apps and certain things to get to where you're going for whatever dates. So he was trying to give me kind of a handheld lesson while we were there.
What did you do with the phone?
I transported it upstairs to our homicide investigators and released it to them.
Okay, do you recall, you have a detective named Daddy Perkins?
We do.
And that's who you gave it to, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 76 and 77. Ask if you can identify those.
Yes.
What are they?
It's the walkway to the gentleman who had the cameras on his apartment. It kind of faces the drive, so it's the walkway and then his door, the opening of the glass door, the front of his apartment, I guess.
And number 76, does that show the location of the camera?
Yes.
And then 77 is from farther back to...
Yes, it's the walkway landing leading up to the door.
Do both of those accurately reflect the scene depicted as it was on November 17th?
Yes, sir.
Or, pardon me, November 18th, I guess was when you saw it.
Yes, sir.
We've moved for the admission of Exhibit 76 and 77. Mark?
Haven't seen them yet, Judge.
All right.
Is that okay?
76 and 77 will be admitted.
Republish 76, please. Thatcher, on Exhibit 76, does that show the location of the camera?
Yes,
Of the camera?
it does.
Point it out for us if you would, please.
It's right up here in the corner. You can see how the cord goes to the door.
Okay, so you're pointing out the roof, the door frame, and the drain spout kind of intersect.
Correct.
And it's directly below the roof to the right side of the drain spout.
Correct.
And number 77. What's that, sir?
That'd be the landing I was kind of speaking about, leading up to the front door of apartment D.
And you can still see the location of the camera from that angle, can you not?
Yes. Still up here on the side of that light.
Just to the right of the porch light?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to show you now State's Exhibit 119. Do you recognize that as an overhead view of 215 North Brunswick and the apartments on each side?
Yes, sir.
Does it appear to be an accurate depiction of that area?
Yes.
Your Honor, we move for the admission of State's Exhibit 119.
Without objection.
119 will be admitted.
And Officer Thatcher, if I'd ask you to get up and come over to the side. I'm going to have you point out 215 North Brunswick, but it has a label on it, does it not?
Yep, that gives it away.
Okay. And then two buildings to the north of that is 229 North Brunswick, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's the building that you obtained the camera from?
Yes, sir.
Or, pardon me, obtained the phone that had the video of the camera?
Yes. There's the door back in here.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The door to the apartment back up here in the front.
Okay, and you're indicating the south side of the building, about midway between east and west?
Yes. It's probably the southwest corner there.
Very good. On the photograph, can you show us the direction where that camera was facing?
Yeah. No, I think there was more than one, but the primary one that was up at the door, there was kind of two, if I recall, and they were facing out towards the street. And there was a chime that would go off too, anytime you even started to walk along the porch, you would activate cameras. So any motion, doorknobs, anything like that, the cameras would activate and would stay on for like 5 minutes and then shut off. It was one of those types of systems. But from what I viewed, it was viewing this stretch of street shooting out from the apartment to the road. So it picked up traffic kind of coming and going in the cul-de-sac.
And you indicated kind of in a cone shape as you came out from the camera?
Yeah, like my memory, I remember looking at it and just seeing the view of the tree and the cars just through the camera.
And the tree, you can actually see the tree in State's Exhibit 119, can't you? Show us where that is.
Right there.
And that's the tree actually near the top of the photograph to the east of the building we've been talking about, right?
Judge, we've been talking about two buildings.
Specify what building you're talking about, Mr. Wyman?
At 229 North Brunswick,
Yes.
the building that had the camera from which you got the telephone.
Yes, sir.
Like to have one more.
Certainly.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Mr. Smart.
No questions, Judge, thank you.
Officer Thatcher, thank you, sir. You can step down there, excuse.
Thank you.
Next witness to the state, please.
This time the state would call Detective Eric Guzman. Commission inquiry, Your Honor. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Eric Guzman.
Where are you employed?
I'm currently a detective with the Wichita Police Department.
How long have you been a detective with the Wichita Police?
I've been a detective since December of 2016.
So prior to December 2016, where were you assigned and what was your role?
Prior to December of 2016, I was a police officer. I did time as a patrol officer, a community policing officer, and right before I was promoted, I was a gang intelligence officer.
As part of your role as a gang intelligence officer, are you loaned out to help in homicide investigations?
Yes, that role, we assist with all violent crimes, and obviously homicide is the most violent, and so we are called in to assist on those.
Do you recall whether you were called in to assist with the homicide that occurred in the area of 215 North Brunswick here in Wichita on November 17, 2016?
Yes.
What basic facts were you aware of when you were briefed as you began your assistance on that case?
Well, from the very beginning, I was contacted at my residence and asked to come in or go to the address. I spoke with Lieutenant Ogile, who's oversees homicide, and he said that they were in need of a Spanish translator, and I am a translator, and they needed me to speak to some people.
What language do you translate?
Spanish.
Are you a native Spanish speaker?
Yes, I am.
Beyond growing up speaking Spanish, does the Wichita Police Department require you to formally produce evidence that you are qualified to translate from Spanish to English?
Yes, prior to being labeled a Spanish translator on the department, you must go before a board. It's normally made up of officers and citizens that speak Spanish. They then conduct an oral board with you, asking you questions. That's all in Spanish, and they see whether you can respond to them correctly and so forth.
In addition to your language skills of hearing Spanish and be able to translate that to English and translate from English back to Spanish, are you familiar with translating or interpreting written Spanish into English?
Yes, I am.
In this case, were you asked to review any documents that were written in Spanish?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall what kind of document it was?
I was emailed several pages, basically, of text messages that have been obtained through the case.
Do you recall whether they or anyone told you where they had been obtained?
Yes, I've been told that they've been taken off of the victim's phone after they located an app on the phone that was for text messaging, and the messages were all in Spanish.
So this is, when you say the victim, you're talking about Laura Barker, the victim of the homicide at 215 North Brunswick?
Yes, I am.
And you're talking about her iPhone?
Yes, that's correct.
Judge, I'm showing defense counsel 4 pages I believe I'll mark State's Exhibit 120. You approach the witness. 120. Detective Guzman, could you review these 4 pages and see if you recognize them?
Yes, I do recognize them.
Where do you recognize them from?
These are the emails that were sent to me, and eventually I printed off so that I can translate.
So that's the extraction report that you translated from Spanish to English?
Yes, that's correct.
In fact, do you notice anything written on there which would indicate it was specifically the one that you reviewed?
Yes, I wrote the case number and my last name and initials at the top of each page to say that this was the ones that I had translated.
Are those 4 pages a fair and accurate color depiction of the extraction report that you reviewed?
Yes, they are.
I'd move to admit State's Exhibit 120 at this time.
Reject pursuant to our pretrial motions.
Objection noted on the reason for the reasons previously stated. Motion is submitted.
Now, they're in Spanish, so I'm going to have to ask you to, when I direct your attention to specific entries, to read it to yourself in Spanish and explain it to the jury. If we were to depict it, I don't know if the Spanish itself would assist the jury. Later in the case, we will produce a translation of those. But I just want to talk about the rough translation that you did and why, or if you found anything of interest during this translation.
Okay.
So let's start with, is there a specific time frame that these messages are between in terms of dates?
The first text message is dated November 16, 2016 at 9:23 a.m.
And why would November 16th, 2016 be important for you?
because it was a day before the homicide.
Okay. And when is the last message in the chain that you reviewed?
The last day was November 18th, 2016 at 9:18 a.m.
So you have communications that occur the day before the homicide, the day after the homicide.
That's correct.
Does, from your review of that extraction report, does it identify, or how does it identify the people communicating?
It identifies them through the telephone numbers.
Is there a telephone number for the, for lack of a better word, the owner or the person that would be the recipient in that phone?
Yes. It actually, looking at it, it actually has the phone number. It then tells the app that's being used, and then it has a name attached to it.
So, first of all, what's the name?
For the recipient,
Yes.
it's Laura.
So, based upon the victim being Laura Barca, that would be consistent with what you would expect.
Yes, that's correct.
What is the phone number associated with Ms. Barca's account?
It's 316-214-7044.
And this is just a communication between one other individual, or is it multiple individuals?
Just with one other person.
And what is that account's phone number?
That account's phone number is 316-689-1026.
So it would appear to be another Kansas local phone number.
Yes, that's correct.
But to your knowledge, this is an app, so you don't know where these people are communicating, you just know that they're communicating using the app.
That's correct.
Do you know what the name of the app is?
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, that's WHATS, capital APP, all one word?
I don't know if the A is capitalized, the second A, but yeah, that's the correct spelling of it.
Is there a username associated with that phone number?
Yes, there is.
Can you say it word for word, but also spell it for the benefit of the court reporter?
It's two names. It's Yesenia Amiguita, and Yesenia is Yessenia, and then the second name is Amiguita.
Based on your Spanish knowledge, is the last name there, does it have any meaning, or is it just, would it sound like a normal Spanish name?
No, Amiguita is like a little friend. It's just a different way of saying friend.
And what is the Spanish word for friend?
Amigo or amiga, depending on the gender.
So this being ending in A would indicate a female to you?
Yes.
So when we look at the information, you said the first message was in the morning on the 16th. Who is it sending out, or is it receiving in?
The very first message is a message being sent.
Based on that first message, was there anything that when you look at it stood out to you as being of interest in a homicide investigation?
What stood out to me is that the person is saying, basically saying, hey, I'm fine, I'm going to stop. Well, sorry. If I can I?
I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Did you produce a written rough English translation of this for your own assistance?
Yes, I did.
Did you provide that to law enforcement during the course of the investigation of this homicide?
Yes, I did.
Would that assist you with describing this to the jury?
Yes, I would.
Judge, I'm going to show 2 pages to Mr. Smart.
All right.
Judge, with Mr. Smart's indulgence, I'm going to allow the witness to use this to assist his testimony.
You agree with that, Mr. Smart?
I think it's going to make it clear to the jury.
All right.
I'm handing you 2 pages. When you look at those 2 pages, Detective Guzman, are they similarly marked to the extraction report itself?
Yes, they are.
Your notes, your badge number, your information?
Yes, that's correct.
So this is work product that you created during the course of this investigation?
Yes, that's correct.
So bear with me because I think I may have given you my only copy. No, I have it here. Let's go through. You're talking about the very first message on November 16, 2016 at approximately 9:23 in the morning. What stood out to you based upon that communication?
She basically says in the message, and what I wrote down was, well, it's fine. I'll go today and tomorrow as well, and on Friday, ha ha ha. What time does your boyfriend go to work? It's because I get embarrassed because maybe he is there, and me there like being nosy, and I put count a lot of things because I translated it verbatim, but basically she's saying I have to tell you a lot of things.
So the word in Spanish verbatim is count, but you're saying your knowledge of Spanish, that would really mean something different?
Correct, because contar means to count, but when you're saying it in the context of contarte is telling you, or telling you something.
For the benefit of this translator, could you spell the word you just used? It was the benefit of the record.
Contar, C-O-N-T-A-R.
Now, so they're going to have a conversation, but she wants to make sure that the boyfriend's not there.
Correct.
To your knowledge, based on the investigation, was the boyfriend of the victim present at the time of the homicide?
No, he was not.
If we go down, does Laura answer?
She'll respond yes, saying that she goes in at 9. She says, I go in at 9.
Could that mean he goes in at 9, or do you not know?
The way that it's written, she's saying that she herself goes in at 9.
So you're translating verbatim to just make sure that there's no question upon what the words mean. You're not trying to interpret.
That's correct.
Now, at some point down this conversation, is there any conversation about asking for an address?
Yes. It says, it was on, again, November 16th, and it's marked at 10:43 a.m. It is from the name associated with Yesenia Amiguita. It says, "Send me the address again, ha ha ha, because I can't find it, friend, please."
Does Laura respond with the address on North Brunswick?
Yes, she does.
What approximate time does this occur?
She responds with her actual address at, again, on November 16th, 2016 at 10:59.
Now, as we proceed through the messages, do you recall whether there's any messages that indicate that they have met?
Yes.
Where does that occur?
On November 16th, at 7:25 p.m., there's a message from Laura that says, "Thanks for coming. I was very happy to see you. Keep at it. Life goes on. Dedicate some time to yourself. You don't need a man at your side to come out ahead. The things are given you with your ex. They are given but you keep moving forward. Don't become depressed."
Kind of a peppy message from a friend to a friend.
Yes.
Any discussion there about exchanging or adopting a baby?
No.
Any conversation about meeting the next day on the 17th? I'll direct your attention to the second page of your translation that assists you.
Yes. On November 16, 2016 at 7:52 p.m. From Yesenia Amiguita, it says, "Well, Mina, that is my turn to tell you from me to you, and let's see if tomorrow I swing by so I can make you a soup or something so you can rest."
Indicating that they would meet again.
Correct.
Now, knowing that what did you know in terms of the timing of the window of when we believe, strike that, when your investigation believed that Laura had been murdered or shot, killed, is a better way to say it. When that occurred, do you have a window of time that is of interest to you?
It would have been on November 17th, and as far as the time, I know it was possibly in the afternoon, but I'm not too certain.
So when you look at, are there messages that occur on November 17th, 2016 in the afternoon?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Are there messages between the two parties on November 17th, 2016 after 12 noon?
No, there's not. Or
If I draw
After-
if I draw your attention to the approximately 1:20 in the afternoon, are there messages between the parties?
Sorry. Okay, I was looking at the wrong thing. I apologize. Okay, so on the 17th, there's a message at 8:29 a.m. from Laura. Then there's 3 more messages from Yesenia at 1:21. This is on the 17th. At 1:21, 1:22, 1:23. There is 1 more message from Laura at 1:24 p.m. on the 17th, which is an email. And then after that, there are multiple messages from Yesenia, but none back from Laura.
So the last message that record would show coming from the user identified as Laura is 1:24 in the afternoon.
Yes, that's correct.
All the messages after that are from the name Yesenia Amiguita, according to this record.
Yes, that's correct.
drawing your attention specifically to the 1:30 timeframe. Are there any messages near the 1:30 timeframe?
1:30, there's at 1:31 p.m., there's actually 3 messages that are sent. The first one at 1:31 is an attachment. Then there was at 1:31 again, but with 12 seconds, is from Yesenia saying, "This is friend." And then again at 1:31, but with 15 seconds, it's just friend. And then that's it.
Kind of like it's me?
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now, I want to draw your attention back to the extraction report. If you look at the page 2 at the top, does it appear that there is any attachment that was sent from one user to the other?
Yes, there is.
And what does it appear to be in color?
It is a attachment of a photo of a baby.
Is there a name associated with the baby?
Right below the name says the name Victoria on it.
Based upon your being briefed in that a baby, Sophia Victoria Gonzalez Abarca, was missing, is that of interest to you?
Yes, it was.
So at least they're talking about that baby at some point by saying, here, this is the baby.
Correct, at least a photo was sent, correct.
Now let's talk for a moment about any text messages after the homicide would have occurred. Are there any communications after the homicide occurred?
Yes, there is. There's one message.
Is that message of interest?
Yes, it was.
Can you tell the jury when it was sent?
The message was sent on November 18th, 2016 at 9:18 a.m.
So the day after.
Yes.
So that phone, Laura's phone, is still receiving messages even after the homicide
Yes, that's correct.
from the same sender, Yesenia Abagita.
Yes, that's correct.
What does that message say?
Said, "Hello friend, how are you? Are you well? Because Gabby sent me a message asking if I knew what had happened with you. And well, since yesterday you didn't respond, I didn't want to bother. And you see, I spoke to you about my uncles. I went after all over there. I'm arriving in Indiana. Happy and thanks for your advice, friend."
So based on that, the communication is that person is on their way to Indiana.
Yes, that's correct.
Based upon you knowing that a baby was missing, the basic timeline, did you bring this to the attention of the case detective?
Yes, I did.
Who was the case detective on this case?
It was Detective Tennyson.
You give that information to Detective Tennyson along with a phone number associated with the account Yesenia Abagita,
Yes.
and that was 316-689-1026?
Yes, that's correct.
If I could just have a moment. If I could just ask you a couple more questions. I want to direct your attention back to the image of the infant that was sent with the name Victoria.
Yes.
Who was the sender?
That was sent by Laura.
And that baby's not called Azul.
I'm sorry?
That baby's not named Azul in that picture.
No.
That baby is named Victoria.
Victoria.
And that's sent from Laura to the other party.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't believe I have anything beyond that. There may be questions from the defense counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Deputy Guzman, thank you, sir. You can step down your excuse.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
At this time, the state would call Lieutenant Chad Beard.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Sir, could you introduce yourself to the jury?
Sure. My name is Chad Beard
Where do you work, sir?
with the Wichita Police Department.
What capacity?
I'm currently a lieutenant, and I'm assigned to Patrol North on 4th Watch.
Back in November of 2016, were you working in that same capacity?
No, I was not. I was actually a sergeant assigned to the Violent Crimes Task Force or unit that we work with.
Would you work with then Officer Guzman at that time?
Yes.
Based upon your role with the Wichita Police Department in November 2016, were you called in to assist on homicide investigations from time to time?
Yes, I am.
I want to direct your attention to a homicide that occurred on November 17, 2016 here in Sedgwick County. The homicide involving Laura Barca. Did you assist in that investigation?
I did.
Did you assist the actual first day of the investigation, or when did you become involved?
I did. On the very first day, I was notified to come in and assist with the initial investigation. We had learned of a shooting at 215 Brunswick. I instructed two of my officers to proceed to that location to assist with initial investigation. I also sent two additional officers to what we call the 6th floor, which is the investigations division, to begin conducting research. A lot of times if we look up information from the address, names associated with it, whatnot, we're able to get a lead. I did proceed to the scene to see what I could do to assist other investigators at that time.
Now, at some point on the first day, the investigation kind of wraps up for the evening. Did you come back in on the next day?
Correct.
I guess I want to back up a little bit and have you explain to the jury, like to become a lieutenant, to become a sergeant, what are the ranks you go through as a Wichita Police Department officer?
Sure. Initially, I was a patrol officer after graduating from the academy in 1998. I was assigned to Patrol South as an officer. I would answer calls. In 2002, I was then moved to the rank or changed to a gang intelligence officer. For the next 7 years, I was a gang intelligence officer. And then in 2009, I was promoted to the rank of detective. For the next 5 years, I was assigned as a detective to the gang felony assault section, answering reports and calls in reference to follow-up. I would present cases to the district attorney's office and do follow-up on cases as a detective. In 2014, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant. I went back to the streets as a Patrol East as a sergeant on 4th Watch. I would be in charge of other officers, answer calls with them, make supervisory decisions. And then I went back to the gang unit again as a sergeant and worked there for the last 2 years. And then I was promoted to the rank of lieutenant and currently assigned to Patrol North 4th Watch, which is in charge of other officers as well as supervisors now. So I'm in charge of an entire shift as a supervisor over the entire shift, which is 4th shift, from about 9 p.m. until 7 in the morning.
So should you be asleep right now?
I should, yes. So.
Based on all that experience that you get, I mean, you say gang, but really it's, you deal with violent crimes in that unit, right?
Correct. It's gangs and violent crimes. It's what I've worked in probably for the last 16, 17 years has been my experience.
And it is not a specialty that when there's a homicide that doesn't have gang involvement, you could still be involved based on your experience as a violent crimes detective, a violent crimes officer, a violent crimes sergeant?
Yes, and we're assigned to investigations, and so as in our capacity, we would often do the follow-up, go out and look for people, do all kinds of different things that, while detectives are doing interviews, we were the guys doing the grunt work, going out and finding people and bringing them up and locating suspects, witnesses, and that sort of stuff. So we were doing the field work at that point.
So part of your experience and expertise is really finding information with clues that have been given to you by other people.
Absolutely.
So I want to direct your attention to information or a clue that you were given in this case.
Sure.
Were you provided any information from Detective Tennyson that she wanted you to research?
Yes, I was.
What did she give you to research?
She gave me a name and a phone number. The name on the piece of paper that she had provided to me, it was indicated that this name had come from the victim's phone. And it was Yesenia Sesmas. And then there was a phone number associated with that name that was written on the paper also. It was area code 316 and 689-1026 was the phone number.
So when you get a local phone number, do you have access to like local records to try to figure out who might have that phone number?
Yes,
Were you able to associate that phone number with any person whose name was similar to the name you've been given?
I was, yes.
What name did you discover?
It was Yesenia Sesmas.
Now, based upon that information, did you provide that to Detective Tennyson?
I did, yes.
Now, based on that number, did you also find any local addresses associated with that?
I did. I was able to look up through our local records that the last known address associated with that name was 735 South Elizabeth.
And is that here in Wichita?
It is.
Did you direct anyone or go yourself to check out that location?
I instructed officers to proceed to that location to check to see if she was there. They did proceed to that location, and they were unable to locate her. However, they did find mail still at that residence for her.
At that time, were you able to find any photographs that were associated with that name?
I did. We looked up a photograph of her.
And so you had something that you could finally give to detectives to look at?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you recall that photograph?
I do.
Do you see anyone in this courtroom matching that description?
I do.
Can you tell me who you see?
Sure. It's the lady sitting at the defendant's table. She's wearing the green shirt with the black hair.
Your Honor, the record reflect that he's identified the defendant?
It will reflect.
So the name Yesenia Sesmas, that photograph matches the defendant?
Yes, it does.
The phone number that you found in your records matches that to the defendant?
Yes, it does.
Just a moment. No, thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Detective. Sergeant. Lieutenant.
Yes, it's all right.
I apologize.
It's all right.
Mr. Smart?
No, Your Honor.
I don't mean to one-up Mr. Roach, but Lieutenant, thank you very much. You can step down your excuse.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Everyone is confused.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes,
Please tell the jury your name, ma'am.
I'm Michelle Palmer.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a detective for the Wichita Police Department.
Are you assigned to a particular division within the police department?
Yes, sir, the homicide section.
How long have you been a homicide detective?
Almost 4.5 years.
When a homicide occurs in the city limits of Wichita, does Wichita Police Department respond?
Yes, sir.
And if a case appears at least to have indications of a homicide, you don't always know, could be something else, but is a particular detective assigned to be the lead detective?
Yes.
And did that occur in a case that we've been discussing these last several days that occurred on November 17th, 2016?
Yes,
A woman named Laura Abarca.
that's correct.
Was she the victim in this case?
Yes.
And what was your role in relationship to this particular case?
I am the case detective or lead investigator for the case.
One thing, bookkeeping, get out of the way. At that time, you went by Michelle Tennyson, is that correct?
That's correct.
Had a change in circumstances and you're Michelle Palmer now.
Just recently, yes.
All right. We've heard a lot about officers having gone to the scene, finding Miss Abarca. Also, a lot of testimony about the fact that there was a 6-day-old baby that was missing. It's not fair to say this wasn't just a homicide investigation at that point.
That's correct. That's a fair statement.
When a female or woman dies in an act of violence, a former love interests kind of come to the top of the suspect list?
Yes.
Not always, but...
Not always. In this case, it did.
And Miss Abarca had an ex, who was no longer in her life, not living with her. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And all things being equal, you got to eliminate him, yes?
Correct.
So the first stages of this investigation was some effort made to locate that man and see if there was a possibility he could have been involved.
Yes, we did that.
What was his name?
LaRon Berry?
And was he located physically?
Yes.
Where at?
Kansas City?
And was some effort made to see if you could put him in the Wichita area at or around the time of the homicide?
Yes, we tried that.
Any luck?
He was not in Wichita at the time of the homicide.
Not to give this any more formal, I'm not trying to imply something more formal than is intended, but the word alibi, I mean, was he, in cop language, was he alibied?
He was alibied in Kansas City by special agents up there.
So what I'm getting at is when was that roughly?
I have it in my notes the exact time, but it was, we got the call in the afternoon, and it was well into the evening, but before midnight, that we found out that he was no longer a person of interest or a suspect in this case.
So we heard from Guadalupe, Laura's mother, that she gets off work at 3. Shortly thereafter, before she can even get in to buy milk, she's getting a call from her son that Laura's been found. So I think other officers talked about the time frame that Laura was found, but fair to say by 3 p.m. she's been identified as deceased, suffering from a gunshot wound in that apartment.
That's correct.
Before midnight, so 8-9 hours later, your first and only lead is going nowhere.
It went absolutely nowhere. We had nothing after that.
So, we also heard from Roderick Miller. He's a sergeant with your department, is that right?
Correct.
He told us that he picked up a cell phone from the sofa. And we've already heard from Detective Guzman moments ago, and then Lieutenant Beard. Tell us about how that progressed. What did that do for you as the lead investigator?
So when we got the victim's cell phone from the residence, the first thing we do is we try to download that phone, or at least go through it to see if there's anything that might show us who she last contacted, if she's had any problems with anybody, any pictures that are on the phone, videos that could help aid us in the investigation. So in this one, we got her phone and we just started going through the information.
Realized pretty quickly that at least some of the conversations she would have been involved in were in Spanish.
Yes.
Get a hold of Guzman.
Correct.
He's already explained to us the translations he provided to investigators, namely you and the other investigators in the case. Fair statement?
That's correct.
Let's take a sidetrack for a moment in this process. Just you sitting at a cubicle or at a desk working on this all by yourself that afternoon?
No, sir.
Okay. To give us some sense of the resources that have been marshaled in this case to assist you and the police department in general.
So this started out with Wichita Police and quickly became a multi-agency collaborative effort. We brought in members from the District Attorney's Office, from the Exploited Missing Children's Unit for our own section. Members of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office helped us in this. Eventually, we reached out and were able to get FBI help. They sent agents our way. They also sent us a CART team, which is the Child Abduction Response Team, or the CARD team, which is the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team. They also
So CART, C-A-R-T,
Correct.
Rapid
Child Abduction Response Team.
Response Team, excuse me. CARD Team, C-A-R-D,
Correct.
that's the,
Child Abduction Rapid Deployment.
stop you there. So if a child is abducted in the continental United States or elsewhere, I suppose, FBI will literally send a team to assist local law enforcement?
They send teams, and they come from all over the United States to assist our agency in finding the child.
They are on the ground in Wichita by that evening?
We started the calls that evening. By the next morning, they were on the ground in Wichita.
Yes, ma'am. Who else?
There were members from NECMEC, which I don't know the exact acronym, but they're with the National Exploited Missing Children's Unit. They also send in resources.
So, give me a sense. This is a room. I think if I recall, it was the room that people may see police making statements in. It's where you guys do your public statements.
We initially started in the homicide office, but there were so many agents and people there helping that we had to take over the fifth floor. It's called the briefing room. That's where they do the media briefing. So the entire room was filled with people helping.
Okay? LaRon Berry from Kansas City. That's
Out of the picture.
Out of the picture by late evening, that first night. You turn your attention to the phone.
Correct.
Guzman's making these interpretations or translations rather, translations of her communications with others. Was your attention drawn specifically to conversations the detective, or at the time Officer Guzman, found on an app called WhatsApp?
Yes.
What was it about those conversations that seemed to hold some promise?
Those conversations occurred within the time frame that the homicide could have occurred in. So the victim was communicating with somebody just before she was killed.
You're aware also that the next day this person sends a text, a written communication saying words to the effect, "I'm headed to Indiana."
I learned that later, yes.
So this is promising. Then Lieutenant Beard finds a name associated with that last number that had been involved in this chat. Accurate?
Correct.
Comes up with the name Yesenia Sesmas.
Correct.
You guys trying to find her here locally?
We did.
Were you able to find her here in Sedgwick County?
No, sir.
Does the help, I mentioned all these other federal agencies and these other folks that are here, does that prove fruitful for you? Having them, FBI, CART team, those folks, do they do something for you in this situation?
Yes,
Tell
absolutely.
us.
In this case, they were able to take the phone number that was associated with Yesenia Sesmas and track her in Dallas, Texas.
Track her, what do you mean by that?
They were able to they show her location when she left Dallas, coming up to Wichita, showed her near the scene at the time of the homicide, and then also showed her going back down to Dallas, or at least her phone.
Let's clarify. The FBI is not telling you that Yesenia Sesmas is leaving Dallas, coming to the scene, but at least her phone is being tracked.
That's correct.
Okay. And there's reasons we bring in experts, so I'm not going to ask you for your expertise in this, but are you generally aware that cell phones have GPS and mechanisms to, let's put it this way, I want to know where my 8th grader is, I can put an app on her phone and figure out where she is at most times.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
All right? Do you guys use that technology from time to time to assist in your homicides?
Yes.
So is your understanding that the FBI was able to, we use a term ping, does that have any meaning to law enforcement?
Yes.
What's a ping?
Basically, it'll tell me your exact location at that time. We can get live pings, or we can get pings that just show your location.
ping's maybe a common word, but does it imply at least that your phone is bouncing off of or pinging off of a nearby tower location?
Correct.
That's your understanding?
Yes.
All right. So now you've got Guzman showing you this conversation between Laura's number and a number you are now associating with Yesenia Sesmas,
Correct.
formerly of Wichita, but at least having traveled from and back to Dallas, Texas, according to the FBI, yes?
That's correct.
What do you do with that information?
We contacted the Dallas Police Department and the FBI agents that were down in that area to assist us in trying to locate the house that the pings are coming back to and assist in the investigation.
And were they responsive? Were they helpful?
Yes, they were.
What time, so the 17th, when Laura's body is found in the afternoon, is a Thursday. By midnight Thursday night into early morning hours of Friday, Barry's gone, Sesmas's name is being identified. What time is it that Dallas cops are called, and do they go out to her residence?
I don't know the exact time without looking out, but it was early hours in the morning. I mean, now we're getting into Saturday morning.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. All day Friday, you guys are working this lead.
Correct.
Late Friday night.
We get this information into Saturday morning.
Okay. So by Saturday overnight, pardon me, do you get any feedback from Dallas? What have they found?
Yes, they have gone into the address there in Dallas at 910 Signet, and they located Yesenia Sesmas, an adult male, 2 juveniles, and then an infant child.
You're still in Wichita?
Yes.
Not for much longer.
No, sir.
How long did it take you to get on a plane to head to Dallas?
We were waiting at the airport, so the moment we found out there was an infant child in there, we immediately boarded the plane and headed to Dallas.
Who's we?
Myself and Lieutenant Ojal and Detective Chisholm.
Quick ride to Dallas. You get there, do you have contact with an infant baby girl?
Yes.
Are you part of bringing her back to Wichita?
Yes.
In addition to the delivery back, do you also take some steps to assist in the subsequent forensic analysis?
Yes.
What do you do?
I took buccal swabs, which are swabs of the inside of the mouth to collect DNA material. And I collected that from Ian Abarca, which is a child of the Abarca family, from Israel Abarca, which would be Laura's brother, Israel Abarca, and from the defendant, Yesenia Sesmas, and then also from the child, Sophia.
And was that to be able to positively identify the baby, the infant female girl found in Dallas, Texas, in the defendant's home by DNA as the child of Laura Abarca Emanuel?
That's correct.
Were those swabs you collected then, what'd you do with them?
I took them over to the Forensic Science Center so they could be tested.
Here in Wichita, Sedgwick County?
That's correct.
Just a moment. The child, where did you go take possession of the child?
At the hospital there in Dallas.
After she'd been removed to the hospital by the Dallas PD?
That's correct.
I wanted to check her out, make sure she was okay.
That she's healthy, yes. That she is healthy.
Before we get started, I put a couple of exhibits on the table in front of you. I may approach you on.
You may.
These have been identified Estates 24 has been previously identified as the cell phone. Manuel identified that as the cell phone of Laura, but do you recognize that photo?
Yes,
What is it?
that's a picture of Laura's phone.
The same phone that Rod Miller would have picked up on the cushion next to her from the couch?
That's correct.
And Estates 27 is a manila envelope which got quite a bit of marking on it. Can you identify that?
Yes, this is an envelope that we put evidence in, and then there are seals, which will have the initials of somebody who's gotten into this envelope.
Do you recognize at least one set of initials and a date, I think, 5/18?
Correct.
Yeah, 5/18 of this year,
That's correct.
so just a few days ago.
Correct.
Who got into it then?
I got into this phone at the request of the defense.
And did you show that to Mr. Smart at the time?
Yes,
So this is in pretrial, preparation for trial, showing evidence.
correct.
So is that, do you know, because your initials are on here, on States 27, is this the actual phone depicted in States 24?
Yes,
This is Laura's phone.
correct.
Move for admission to States 24 and 27.
Correct.
24 and 27 will be admitted.
If I may show the phone to the jury, States 24. Unremarkable, but cell phone.
Correct.
Okay. Nothing else, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Judge, I have some additional questions for this witness, but I believe that they'd be more timely later in the case, and so I'd ask that it should be subject to recall. We have some witnesses from Dallas and here in the state.
No objection.
All right. Detective, I'll excuse you as a witness, but you're subject to recall.
Okay.
Understand that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Step down.
Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes.
Would you tell us your name, please?
Yep, Addie Perkins.
And what's your occupation?
I'm a detective for the Wichita Police Department.
How long have you been with the police department?
18 and a half years.
And how long is a detective?
13 years, I think.
Okay. I want to call your attention to November 16th of 2016. Were you a part of the investigation into the death of Laura Larka?
Yes.
Did you continue working on that for some period of time?
Yes, I did.
On November, I think I said the date wrong. The homicide occurred on November 17th, right?
Yes.
And on November 18th, were you still working on it?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a call from Officer Robert Thatcher?
Yes, I did.
And what did that concern?
Officer Thatcher had been driving around the neighborhood looking in that area on Brunswick, looking for any type of video cameras, and he had come across one and wanted to let us know about it.
Okay. Did Officer Thatcher suggest bringing someone with him down to the 6th floor?
Yes, he did.
That person's name was Martin Gowan?
Yes.
Martin was accompanied by a friend? correct?
Yes.
Did Officer Thatcher have anything with him when he brought Mr. Gowan and Mr. Gowan's friend to the police station?
Yes, he had Mr. Gowan's phone.
Was there a reason why he had that phone?
Yes, when Officer Thatcher had originally called me, he explained that this video was a cloud-based doorbell type video camera, and that the video could be downloaded from Mr. Gowan's cell phone.
Did Mr. Gowan cooperate in downloading video from that cell phone?
Yes, he did.
Had you done anything to prepare to be able to do that?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
I had never dealt with any type of cloud-based or web-based storage for these doorbell video cameras before. I learned that the type of cell phone, or the type of doorbell camera was called Kuna, and there was a Kuna app that he had on his phone. So prior to them arriving at the city building, I had Googled how I would download the Kuna app, or a video from the Kuna app, so I could be prepared and try to start to understand how that process would go.
And Google had the information you needed?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So Officer Thatcher, Mr. Gowan arrived.
Yes.
Did Mr. Gowan consent to allowing that download?
Yes, he did.
Tell us just how you went about doing the download.
Sure. I had printed off the instructions from Google on how to download this video from this Kuna app, and I'd had them with me. So I had his phone. It was as simple as selecting the videos from that day and downloading them. I later learned, as I was getting into this process of downloading these videos, that I could also hook it up directly to my computer at work and download those right to my desktop from his cell phone, which is what I ended up doing.
Okay. Do you recall if you learned how the cameras were activated?
Yes. I learned that they were activated several different ways by motion, if motion occurred in front of the camera, or if it was activated by actually pressing the doorbell.
So in looking at the Kuna app on Mr. Gowan's phone, how many videos did you find?
From that particular day of the homicide, there were 12 videos.
And that's November 17th of 2016.
Yes.
Did you later find that one of those videos became relevant to the investigation?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
I learned that later on in the investigation, I had learned a large black pickup truck was a vehicle of interest. On these 12 videos, I believe it was the 5th video at 12:15 p.m. that day, had a motion activated type of video. A person was walking up the stairwell of these apartments on Brunswick, and at the same time this black pickup truck was driving south on Brunswick. It pulled into a parking lot of these apartment complexes just to the south of where Mr. Gowan lived. It then backed up, drove back on Brunswick north to the apartment where Mr. Gowan lived. He also had a parking lot that was within his building, and that's where that truck had parked and stopped. And then the video had shut off at that point.
And I asked you to review what's marked as State's Exhibit 117 before you came up, right?
Yes.
And is that an accurate recording of the video that you got from Mr. Gowan's video camera?
Yes.
Your Honor, we move to the admission. Exhibit 117.
That's objection.
117 will be admitted.
Maybe we can play the video, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Detective Perkins, did you recognize the individual who came up the stairs?
Yeah, I believe that's Mr. Gowan.
On the video itself, it showed a time of 12:15 p.m.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Smart?
No cross here.
Detective Perkins, thank you very much. Step down to your excuse. Next witness, please.
Matthew, M-A-T-T, H-E-W, Balthazar, B as in boy, A-L, T-H-A, Z-O-R.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the case now hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
I may have failed to state this, Judge. At this time, the state would call Detective Matthew Balthazar.
All right.
Sir, could you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Matthew Balthazar.
Where do you work, sir?
I am a detective with the Wichita Police Department.
What capacity do you work?
I am currently assigned to the Crimes Against Persons Bureau.
As part of the Crimes Against Persons Bureau, do you assist in homicide investigations?
Yes, sir.
Do you office on what's commonly referred to as the 6th floor?
Yes, sir.
I want to take you back to November 17, 2016. Were you working that day?
Yes, sir.
Same capacity as a detective?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall whether you were involved in the homicide of Laura Barca?
Yes, sir.
What was your initial role?
I responded as one of the first responding detectives to the scene.
So did you make contact with anyone at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Who did you make contact with?
Manuel Gonzalez.
Based on the information you were learned, what was his relation to the victim?
He was a boyfriend or common law husband.
Did he cooperate with you in your investigation?
Yes, sir.
During the course of the investigation, did you learn whether there was anyone else that should have been in the apartment?
Yes, sir.
Who should have been there as well?
The mother to the victim, Guadalupe, and also her brother, Israel Abarca, and Israel's son, In Abarca.
Those are people that had access to the apartment?
That had recently been in the apartment.
But when you responded to the scene, were you aware of anyone else that should have been there in addition to Laura when she was found?
Yes, they had a newborn daughter by the name of Sophia.
As part of a homicide investigation where someone is found shot and an infant is missing, was a determination made to collect any biological evidence from individuals that were still available?
Yes, sir.
Who did you collect evidence from?
Mr. Gonzalez, Manuel Gonzalez, Guadalupe, and forgive me, I can't remember her last name. She's the mother of Laura Abarca. Her brother, Israel Abarca, and Israel's son, In Abarca.
And when we say Israel's her brother, whose brother do you mean?
Israel is Laura's, the victim's brother.
So Guadalupe's son.
Yes.
How do you collect biological material from them?
We do that by collecting what is called a buccal swab.
And can you describe that and what that is for the jury?
Yes. A buccal swab is taking a sample of the tissue that is located on the inside or interior of the mouth on the cheek. Essentially what we use is we have packages that have sealed, oversized, easily described as a Q-tip. They also, once those are taken, we have sample boxes. Those boxes, the Q-tips are placed in those. So when I complete a buccal swab retrieval from an individual, I'll put on a new pair of latex gloves. I will then prepare the sample box in which the Q-tip will go in. While I'm wearing those gloves, I'll instruct the individuals that I'm just going to rub it on both sides of the cheek. It only takes a few seconds. And then once that is done, I take 2 copies of each one, so 2 large Q-tips, and then they will go in individual collection boxes. Once those are completed, they then go into a 5x7 or whatever medium I choose to put that evidence in. It is then tape sealed and submitted to our property and evidence section, and it sits there until the decision is made if it's transported to the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center for further examination.
So when you take a buccal swab, you said you scrape the interior of an individual's mouth. Is it cut the mouth to get blood, or what does it collect?
No, it's literally like if you were to take a Q-tip and just run it on the inside of your mouth, you're not going to feel any pain. It's going to obviously be wet because it's on the inside of your mouth and collect saliva, but it's also going to collect cells like when your body, skin cells in normal. So it doesn't cause trauma or anything of that nature, and it only takes a few seconds.
So this process by which you are taking is it to get a DNA sample, really?
Yes, sir.
When I say the term known standard, what does that mean to you?
That is the process that we do, say if I were taking a sample from myself and there was another sample or say a scene where there was evidence, biological evidence collected, and I was on that scene, they can take my sample of DNA and it will give a known standard as to someone came to me, collected it from me, and can verify that is my known standard. So if my DNA were to show up on a scene, they can isolate that we know this belongs to Detective Balthazar and we know he was on a scene. So when they start doing the examination of any evidence that may be on a scene, they can start to isolate items.
You say you took Mr. Gonzalez's DNA?
Yes, sir.
Or a buccal swab of the interior of his mouth?
Yes, sir.
Because you don't know what it contains, you just know you took the sample.
Yes, sir.
Do you see Mr. Gonzalez in this courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me where he's seated and what he's wearing?
He's all the way over to my far left. He's wearing a long sleeve black shirt.
Here on the record reflect that he has identified Manuel Gonzalez.
You will also reflect.
Do you see Guadalupe, the person you call Guadalupe, here in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me where she's seated and what she's wearing?
Again, seated to my far left, she's wearing what I describe as like a leopard print, full-length, long-sleeve shirt.
Judge of the record can reflect that he has identified Guadalupe Noguera.
The record will so reflect.
Just a moment, please. Judge, I don't believe I have any further questions based on that.
Thank you. Mr. Smart? Detective Balthazar, thank you very much for your step down and excused.
Thank you, Judge.
It's 11:03. This will be the time for break.
We'll go ahead and take our afternoon recess at this time. We'll do a 20-minute break. If you want to go outside for fresh air, you sure can. If you do go out, make sure you're back in the jury in about 20 minutes. That clock will be about 3:28. Please remember the evidence that has been remains in effect, but that will be in recess. I would ask everybody, your commitments, even if you want to go out until we know that